Welcome, fellow economists. My name is Greg. We're learning economics is as easy as watching a movie. You may already know what a monopoly is through the board game or from other means, but how do they actually work? Well, Tony Stark's actions and the Iron Man 2 plot is not only driven by monopolistic ideas, it actually explains how monopolies work, from things like barriers to entry and price discrimination. When Tony Stark first made the Iron Man armor, I'm sure he didn't think that it was that big of a deal, right? He was going to make this and just become a hero, and that was that. Unfortunately, that's not really how the world works. Tony Stark made the choice to create a monopoly. He's the only one who has this arc reactor technology. And we can see how monopolies and their effect on the economy actually play out right in the first scene. Because Tony decided not to share his technology, there's going to be other people who are going to try and create knockoffs like Justin Hammer does. So what does he end up creating? Well, because Tony's not willing to share any of his ideas, Justin Hammer is forced to just kind of figure it out on his own. And as you can see, didn't turn out too well. In fact, Tony just makes fun of him for it. And by not sharing his technology, Tony has actually created what we call a barrier of entry, which is how much it costs to actually enter into the market. Now I know, Tony Stark
was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps.
Yeah, just like that. However, for someone to replicate all that from scratch without any prior knowledge, it's going to be much more difficult, whether it be Justin Hammer, the US government, or even an environmental group. So the barrier of entry for Justin Hammer is that he doesn't have the knowledge. On the other side of the world, though, because of the actions of Tony's dad, Whiplash actually works on it kind of in the same conditions as Tony and still creates an arc reactor. Now, unfortunately for him, he doesn't have the money to make something as fancy as the Iron Man suit. So his barrier of entry is money. You can think of these things as like the knockoff cereal brand like Malto Meal. Sure, it's kind of like the original, but not exactly. And we actually see this play out when we first see Whiplash, because Tony, once he gets his armor on, kind of takes care of all of it pretty quick. Now, Tony is also really sick because of his arc reactor. This is a bad side effect of it. And because he's the only one who knows how it works, he's the only one who feels like he knows how to fix it. So he has three choices in front of him. He can either not do anything and just die quicker, he can try and do what he's doing and just die slower, or he can try and use his resources to figure out actually how to find a cure for this. And because of the resources he has, he's the only one who's able to put some money into that and develop an even better product. Think of it like this. If Amazon decided that they could create a better product than what they have right now, they have the resources to actually do it, more so than a competitor. And that's how monopolies work. They kind of circle the wagons in this instance. And when they work on improving the product they already control, the barrier of entry even becomes higher. And that's why Justin Hammer and Whiplash decide to team up. Whiplash has the smarts, Justin Hammer has the financial and technological resources, so it makes sense that they're going to try and team up and take down Tony's monopoly. And while all that's going on, Tony is still refusing to sell his technology to the government, to Nick Fury, and to anyone else. He flatly refuses to work with the US government and to sell them his technology. With Nick Fury, he's willing to work with him because he wants to be part of the Avengers Initiative, so he's kind of willing to give Nick Fury a little bit of a better deal. And with Rhodey, I know he ends up taking one of Tony's armor, but Tony doesn't actively fight him to get it back. And that's because for Tony, Rhodey's his friend, so he trusts him with it. Now, Tony has the exact same arc reactor and Iron Man suit technology, but he sets a different price for each one of these players. For the US government, the price is infinity. For Nick Fury, the price is accepting him. And for James Rhodes, the price is just being Tony's friend, and then you can get a suit of armor. Tony giving a different price to each group based on his relationship with them is very similar to how monopolies also work. Monopolies employ something called price discrimination, where based on a certain set of variables, they change the price of a good, and that's exactly what Tony does here. He's motivated by friendship and trust. But Tony isn't just refusing to sell his product to anybody, he is also taking charge of making the arc reactor, making the Iron Man suit, and designing the Iron Man suit to specifically fit him. And this is a technique monopolies also do. It's called vertical integration, where they actually control the means of production. Think of it like this. Amazon is a marketplace website. That's how it started off. But now they also sell their own products, and they also deliver their own products. So let's go back to Justin Hammer and Whiplash for a second, as the movie does. So they actually come up with some pretty cool technology that they're willing to debut. Unfortunately, Tony doesn't really like this very much, mostly because the technology is out there trying to kill him. In order for Tony to defeat his competition, he has to team up with Rhodey. Now, you might look at that and think, oh, well, that's a cool, fun team up, but also it's a monopolistic tactic in order to wipe out any competition. You might know it as a merger, but it's also known as horizontal integration. So in other words, if I make a bunch of movies and that studio over there makes a bunch of movies and we merge together, that's horizontal integration. So think of Tony as like Disney and Rhodey as like Fox. And now that Tony has wiped out the competition, he now has, again, the same choice put in front of him. Does he share his technology and sell it? Or does he just keep it to himself? I think we all know what his choice was. It was to keep it for himself, even though all of his issues directly came from him becoming a monopoly. Tony Stark is no better than Standard Oil, and we see this all over the place. In fact, the Emperor Palpatine could have won the war against the rebellion had he made different economic choices. And if you want to see that, that video will be up next week on this channel. So be sure to check that out on your path to becoming an economist.